What's up, Coastal Fitness Nutrition family? Dr. Devon Coughlin here. Another episode that we're going to touch on, and really today we're going to touch on the top 5 foods that you want to avoid at all costs. All right, so again, eating and nutrition can be very, very confusing and it can be all over the place. I just want to lay out the top 5 that you want to avoid. And if you did nothing else different with your diet except for avoid these 5 foods we're going to talk about today, you would make huge improvements in your health. All right, so let's get started here. Like I said, the top 5 foods to avoid at all costs. I do want to recap the foundation of Coastal Fitness and Nutrition. Again, just to give you an idea, it's really a mix of a traditional and a modified paleo diet that we created. So it's totally unique and original, but really just taking some bits and pieces from different diets that are already out there. Both of these diets have been researched for well over 100 years. So again, we have a lot of data to pull from there. The foundation of this diet is going to have some sort of bone broth to it, whether it be chicken, beef, seafood. We want to make sure that we're getting that as a foundation in our diet. I would say at least 4 to 5 times a week, we want to be getting some sort of a bone broth-based meal, whether it's a stew or something along those lines. We want to make sure that we're getting that in there. It's going to be very nutrient dense. We want to have a diet high in healthy fatty acids, all right? The majority of which is going to be omega-3 and 9. There are some healthy omega-6 fatty acids. The majority are not healthy, and we're going to touch on those today. We've actually touched on them on a different video where we actually compared good fats and bad fats as far as oils go. But again, we want to have a diet high in healthy fatty acids. We're going to be releasing our food guide pyramid soon, and you're going to see that the healthy fatty acids are really towards the bottom, meaning that we want to have a lot of our calories come from that. And then lastly here, organic grass-fed animal proteins and fats. Guys, people have been eating animal proteins, animal products, again, for thousands upon thousands of years. This is a staple in Coastal Fitness and Nutrition. And so again, we're going to touch on this more and even get a little bit more detailed into the difference between organic and grass-fed versus conventional meats, which we're going to touch on in just a minute here. But again, when you look at our food guide pyramid for Coastal Fitness and Nutrition, it's going to be heavy again in animal proteins and fats because that's how our ancestors ate. I always say success leaves clues. So if our ancestors thrived and lived disease-free lives, we want to make sure that we're doing that same thing now, whether it be thousands of years later. They had success with their diet, so we want to really mimic that same idea. So looking at this here, number 1, the top food, and I would say across the board, these are not necessarily in order, but this one is. The number 1 food that you want to avoid is going to be omega-6 vegetable oils, or what I would call toxic vegetable oils. They're also called polyunsaturated fatty acids. These are going to be things that are in almost all the foods you see in a grocery store. So if it comes in a box, if it comes in a package, it's going to pretty much contain these vegetable oils. So again, we're going to go at length into this because you want to avoid these foods at all costs, okay? First one here, you're going to see we have a couple. Corn oil, cottonseed oil, and canola oil. These are highly, highly inflammatory oils. So we talk about inflammation. I mean inflammation of your joints, your spine, your heart, your arteries. Your entire body can have something called systemic inflammation. And that is when you're going to be eating a lot of these vegetable oils, which are high in omega-6 fatty acids. All right, so again, you want to be really, really particular about eating these oils. I highly recommend avoiding them. And again, you're going to see a lot of these are going to be genetically modified as well, which we're going to touch on a little bit more as we go through this video. Sunflower oil, safflower oil, and soy oil are going to be other common culprits. If you get a bag of tortilla chips or potato chips or pretzels, they're more than likely going to contain these oils. All right, again, they're going to be highly inflammatory, so you want to avoid them. Other ones are going to be peanut oil and grapeseed oil. Of all of these, grapeseed is the best, and by grapeseed, I mean literally like the pit of grapes. It is high in omega-6 fatty acids. However, it is the least problematic of all of these, and it's not genetically modified. So again, if you had to choose one of these, you'd want to have grapeseed oil, but the rest of these, again, you really want to avoid. When we look at hydrogenated fats, you've probably also heard the term trans fats or partially hydrogenated fats. In the chemistry world, basically what that means is they take a fatty acid, they add a hydrogen atom to it in a lab, and it creates this like thick binding oil. And that's what, if you picture like creamy peanut butter, instead of like the natural that has like oil separation, creamy peanut butter, they add hydrogenated fats, and it makes it creamy, and it's convenient that way. But these are known to clog our arteries and cause a lot of different health problems in our body. So we're going to avoid hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated fats at all costs, okay? And then the second culprit here is going to be sugar. And sugar, for a number of reasons, is problematic. But I want to, again, touch on the genetically modified point. Almost all the sugar that you're going to be eating is going to be genetically modified. Number one source is going to be high fructose corn syrup. So a lot of people are familiar with that term. They're like, oh, I know that's not good for you. They literally get that from genetically modified corn. It's a byproduct that they use. It's very inexpensive, and it's in almost every product that contains sugar. So if you see sugar in a product that doesn't say organic or non-GMO, you know you're getting genetically modified sugar. All right, so corn or high fructose corn syrup is the number one source. The second most common genetically modified sugar source is going to be something called sugar beets. A lot of people don't realize that. That's another common, inexpensive, genetically modified food that food companies use because it's cheap. So they'll put sugar beet sugar in different products like Oreos and cookies and crackers and ketchup and things like that. You're going to see these things in there. So that's number one. If you're going to have sugar of any kind, make sure it's organic. You don't want the genetically modified sugars. The first thing sugar is going to do, it's going to destroy your glucose levels, or also called your blood sugar levels. The more sugar you eat, the more it's going to spike your blood sugar levels, which is going to lead you down the road, the dangerous road of diabetes. All right, so again, super problematic disease is diabetes. Sugar is also going to cause systemic inflammation, just like the vegetable oils. It's going to cause your joints to hurt. It's going to cause your organs to be problematic. It's going to have problems with your arteries and your heart. Again, systemic inflammation is going to be coming from that. Sugar is also what's called an anti-nutrient. So you've heard before, like nutrients, like your vitamins, minerals, proteins, fats. Sugar is actually what we would call an anti-nutrient. And the reason it's called that because it actually leaches vitamins and minerals out of your diet, out of your body. So if you're eating things that contain vitamins and minerals, if you're eating sugar, the sugar is actually pulling those vitamins and minerals out of your body to neutralize. So it's not just not bringing anything to the table, it's actually taking away your nutrition, all right? The next thing it's going to cause is weight gain. In Dr. Jack Wolfson's book, The Paleocardiologist, he talks about the only way you can gain weight is by eating sugar and carbs. If you eat proteins and fats, you literally don't gain weight. It's sugar and carbs. So if you want to gain weight, you're going to be eating sugar. All right, that's one of the other big things it's going to do. There's another term that we're starting to see now in the world of neurology. So you've heard of things like dementia or Alzheimer's disease. A lot of the neurologists now that are on the cutting edge are starting to call these neurodegenerative diseases a form of type 3 diabetes, meaning that type 1 and type 2 diabetes affect your blood sugar, your pancreas, and that sort of thing. They've also found over time the more sugar and carbohydrates that we consume, it actually is contributing to brain degeneration. So things like Alzheimer's and dementia, they're now calling these type 3 diabetes. There's a book called Grain Brain. There's a number of books out there that you can check out that we're seeing more and more research pointing to sugar causing dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Lastly, it's highly addictive. Sugar is right up there with any drug. You talk about heroin, cocaine, all these different illegal drugs. Sugar is right up there in its level of addictiveness. Okay, so again, we want to be mindful of that. And then lastly, it does cause blood vessel damage as well. I mentioned systemic inflammation before. You need to talk to your doctor because a lot of doctors don't check for a systemic inflammation marker called CRP or C-reactive protein. If your C-reactive protein levels are high in your blood work, it's going to be a warning sign that your body's inflamed and that you're prone to having blood vessel damage or, again, heart attack, stroke, some sort of event like cardiological event that you're going to be at high risk of. All right, so again, these are all concerns with consuming sugar. The number 3 most toxic food is going to be conventional dairy. All right, so what I mean by that is that's going to be your standard run-of-the-mill dairy farm, and I'm going to tell you why that's a problem. Number 1, those cows are going to be loaded up with GMO foods and pesticides. Again, when I say GMOs, I'm talking about soy, corn, these different products that farmers are growing that are laced with GMOs, things like Roundup and things like that the cow then eats, and it ends up in the dairy products that we consume. So you want to make sure that you're getting organic, grass-fed dairy at all costs. Ideally, even it would be raw as well, but at a minimum, it's got to be organic. Conventional dairy, like I said, is going to have all these different ingredients in there. they load these cows up with antibiotics as well. So again, we talk about antibiotics becoming obsolete, like these antibiotic-resistant bacteria. It's coming from overuse of antibiotics. They're really high, again, in omega-6 fatty acids. So I mentioned before on the first slide, corn oil and soy oil are very high in omega-6 fatty acids. If you lock a cow in a pen and you feed it corn and soy, the fatty acids within that cow are going to be omega-6 fatty acids. On the contrary, a grass-fed cow or grass-fed cattle are going to be eating grass, which turns to omega-3 fatty acids in their body. All right, so again, much healthier for us to consume. Digestive issues. A lot of people have intolerance to dairy, whether it be the lactose or the casein that's in the dairy. A lot of people are lactose intolerant, or they just have issues digesting it. There's a number of reasons for that. Again, partially because the cows that we get most of our dairy products from is not the most digestible form of dairy. But again, you want to be mindful of that. It's also going to cause weight gain. Keep in mind, the purpose of a cow making milk is to feed its calf. All right, so cows we know get up to thousands of pounds. If we're using too many dairy products, eating and drinking milk on a regular basis, it will cause weight gain for humans because it's meant to cause little baby calves to get large and gain weight there. Lastly, if you suffer from allergies or asthma, you want to eliminate dairy. All right, allergies and asthma are a result of eating dairy because dairy produces mucus in your body. So if you're prone to having sinus and allergy and asthma problems, and you cut out dairy, you'll find that most people see a huge difference with their allergies and asthma. All right, so that's the number 3 most toxic food. Number 4 is going to be gluten. All right, so most people have heard that gluten could be problematic, and I'm going to tell you, even if you don't have a gluten intolerance or a gluten allergy that you know of, you're going to be best off limiting it. All right, we don't want to have gluten in our diet on a regular basis. Again, it's going to be often genetically modified and highly processed. So a lot of people don't realize this. They say, we've been eating gluten forever. Not like this, though. Again, our ancestors ate more natural wheat. Now, most wheat is very, very highly genetically modified. It's highly processed. Again, there's pesticides, herbicides, things like that. Gluten can cause difficulty digesting and bloating. A lot of people tell you, I cut out gluten, and my bloating is gone. I go to the bathroom more regularly, different things like that. A lot of intestinal disorders are aggravated by gluten. Things like ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, different things like that are going to be aggravated by gluten. Also, it's going to be highly inflammatory. Gluten, believe it or not, there is fatty acids in gluten and in wheat products. And again, it's going to cause joint pain, arterial inflammation, again, creating that problem in our body. You're going to see a pattern. A lot of these foods cause inflammation, and they're going to be highly GMO and different things like that. Again, gluten will cause weight gain. Going back to Dr. Jack Wolfson, the way to gain weight is to eat carbohydrates like things like wheat and rice and things like that, and also to consume sugar. You're going to gain weight that way. Another thing that we're going to see, again, is type 2 diabetes. Gluten is going to spike our blood sugar. All right, really any grain product, any carbohydrate is going to spike our blood sugar. And then we also look at this, causes blood vessel damage again. So that same pattern, inflammation, heart damage, blood vessel damage, sugar problems, inflammation in the joints, digestive problems, all those things you're going to see across the board. Number 5 is going to be conventional meats. So just like we said with dairy, you have conventional meats, and then you also have grass-fed organic meats or like pasture-raised meats. That's what we want. Conventional meats is what we don't want. And I want to be really clear. I know I mentioned on the first slide about the basis of Coastal Fitness Nutrition is going to be things like bone broths and stews, also animal protein and animal fat. Again, it's got to be organic and pasture-raised. I am not condoning or recommending that we consume conventional meats. I'll be honest with you, you're better off not eating meat at all than you are eating conventional meats. Okay, and so when we look at this here, again, they're going to be eating genetically modified organisms or food. They're going to have a toxic fatty acid profile. Like I mentioned before, grass-fed beef turns to omega-3s. If they eat corn and soy, it turns to omega-6s. We look at inflammation again, that same pattern. We look at toxic overload. If you ever heard the term, basically you are what you eat, but even more than that, if you eat animal products, you are not just what you eat, but whatever they ate. So if those animals are eating genetically modified corn and soy, you're getting those same genetically modified organisms in your body, pesticides, antibiotics, herbicides, hormones. Again, we talk about how these cows get huge within a year. The reality is they're giving them hormones and different things to get very large. They sell cows by the pound. So the bigger your cow is as a farmer, the more money you're going to make. All right, so again, we look at that. It's also one of the main reasons we see kids going through puberty earlier is because they're getting exposed to all these chemicals and hormones at a young age. We also look at blood vessel damage again, that same pattern. And then we're also going to see, I do want to share with you here, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, conventional meats are going to contribute to heart disease, blood vessel damage, all those different things. Again, like I mentioned before, the grass-fed, pasture-raised meats are healthy and they don't contribute to heart disease. There was a large study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2013, and they actually looked at over 300 different studies, and they concluded that if you're consuming animal fats and proteins from grass-fed, pasture-raised meats, there is zero link to heart disease. Hear that again, zero link to heart disease. It's the conventional meats that they've been studying and vilifying. It's not the natural pasture-raised meats. All right, and so again, that's really the story. When we look at this here, I want to sum this up for you. Again, number one is going to be vegetable oils. We want to avoid all of them except for coconut oil, avocado oil, olive, and flaxseed. They're going to be the ones that we want to focus on eating. We want to avoid sugar. All right, again, is there a place for sugar? You're going to have it as a treat once in a while. That's fine. Make sure it's organic, okay? Conventional dairy, we want to avoid that at all costs. Gluten, we want to avoid. There's plenty of other options you can have as far as like a starchy thing, whether it be starchy vegetables, whether it be something that's gluten-free like a potato or brown rice thing, something along those lines. It's not going to have that same gluten problem. Conventional meats is number 5. All right, so again, we went through this list here. I know it was don't eat this, don't eat that, but I'm telling you, there's so many good options out there. If you avoid these, your health is going to go through the roof. You're going to be the best you've felt in years. All right. Again, Dr. Devon Coughlin, Coastal Fitness and Nutrition. Make sure you give us a like. Follow our page on YouTube, so we're going to see the videos that are coming out, and give it a share if you got this information useful. Give it a share. Share with your family and friends. It's our pleasure to give you this information, and we look forward to coming with more in the next video.